أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاصبا فستعلمون كيف نذير ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير. Continuing Surah Al-Mulk from ayah number 16. Allah Azza wa Jal says, He is the one who has made the earth dhalulan. Allah Azza wa Jal has made the earth dhalulan. Dhalulan is a description which is given to a riding animal when it serves its rider, does as the owner wishes. It serves the owner. So Allah Azza wa Jal says that this earth has been made subservient. It has been made subservient to mankind. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. So walk through its regions. Manakib refer to the corners. Okay? So walk through its regions. وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. And eat of Allah's provision. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. Yet know that to Him alone is the resurrection of all of you. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. That all of you will be spread out. Nashara means for something to be spread out. The hashar is one aspect that we learn, that everyone will be gathered. That's a part of the power of that day. Everyone will be gathered. Everyone will be gathered, but they will all be kind of spread out and separate. Right? In the sense that everyone will be concerned of their own matter. So they would be spread out and separate. So وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. So Allah Azza wa Jal says that He's made the earth subservient, and so journey in its corners and seek the rizq that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed within it. This is something that, this is why, the going and traveling and working and seeking the rizq of Allah Azza wa Jal, these are not bad things as long as a person is upholding their responsibilities of the deen as well. Right? Rather, there are many ahadith which point to the goodness of working, and in opposition of that, if a person does not work to gain their rizq, then right, that there's many ahadith which speak about why that is wrong. This is because in order to see in order to see the mulk of Allah Azza wa Jal, you have to do this, right? So this surah is all about seeing Allah Azza wa Jal's creation, right? It is by seeing and only seeing that creation that you're attached to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal, His names appear in every single part of His creation. So when you look at those names and you look at the creation, then you attach the creation to Allah's creation. This is the difference. When a Muslim studies the creation versus someone else, the Muslim doesn't say this is just creation and they're studying something or some things they're learning. This is Allah's creation. There's a bridge between creation and Allah. When you attach the creation to Allah, then right, traveling in the earth, seeking Allah's rizq, all of this becomes very beneficial. So for example, Allah Azza wa Jal is Raziq. He's saying over here to eat from His rizq. Right? The rizq of Allah Azza wa Jal is not only, that which you take to sustain yourself. And even if that is the case, is it not possible that that sustenance could come to you in various different forms? Rasulullah ﷺ at times continued fasting for 2 days, 3 days without breaking his fast. And when asked, he said, "My Lord gives me food and gives me drink." Right? So then what's the benefit of wakulu min rizqih, that eat from His sustenance? Right? Allah Azza wa Jal could sustain us from with anything He would have wished, right? But He created food, consider it food, that comes to be one of the first things in mind when you think of rizq, right? That when He's saying eat from His provision, Allah created this food for for this quality of Allah's sustenance, that He's Raziq, to appear in these things. Right? So when you eat this food, then you attach it that this is Allah's creation, this is Allah's provision, this is Allah's food that He's given to me. Right? So then there's a difference between the Muslim and the non-Muslim, right? That they attach this to Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So this is not just Allah saying eat from His rizq, eat from His food. There is a difference here, which is He's saying eat from His food, وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِ, eat from His sustenance, meaning attach this to Allah. This is not just food that you have. This is why when we eat, Rasulullah ﷺ told us that you start with Bismillah, you remember Allah, and that if you do not do so, then shaitan eats with you, right? The point of this saying is that the blessing of that food, which is that you look at that food and you remember Allah Azza wa Jal and you're thankful to Him, and then His name Ar-Raziq, that He is the sustainer, you absorb this name, right? You learn about this name, right? This is what we gain from this ayah. So by traveling the earth, which Allah Azza wa Jal has made for mankind, to serve mankind, Allah Azza wa Jal has made it perfect in that it sustains life, right? From the other celestial bodies, right? The earth is where we know there's life and there's many greenery and all this beauty that Allah Azza wa Jal has created. And so all of this is when you attach it to it being Allah's creation, then its meaning is much deeper, right, for the believer. Right? So it's about not just looking at these things, but it's about looking at it from the lens of Tawheed, that this is Allah's creation. And so anything you look at from this earth when you travel, and specifically then when you eat from its rizq, from the rizq of Allah Azza wa Jal, then you remember Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. This is why then Allah Azza wa Jal at the end of this ayah says that the day of judgment, you'll be gathered back and then placed in front of him, right? That reminder that everything goes back to him, right? So just like this earth, you eat from its rizq is Allah's rizq. This earth is Allah's earth that He's created. Right? Huwa alladhi ja'ala. He created this earth. Likewise, you also belong to Allah and you will return to Allah. So it's about attaching everything to Allah Azza wa Jal. With that being said, right, Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us of Him through this beauty, right? And He also reminds us of Him through His immense power and superiority. So in the next ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, أَأَمِنْتُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ أَنْ يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضِ فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ. That do you then feel secure that He who is in the heaven will not cause the earth to sink under you, then suddenly convulse. Meaning, this is to the directly firstly to the people who disbelieve, that do you think and feel this type of safety that Allah Azza wa Jal, who also created the earth with all the goodness and everything that's there, that do you feel this security that the one who is in the sky, referring to Allah Azza wa Jal, that He would not uh, you know allow this earth and for you to sink within it? And the next ayah, أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا. Or do you feel secure that He who is in the heaven will not send upon you pellets, hasiba, a storm of pellets? This type of these type of ayat also come in other places within the Quran as well. So this is this reminder that when you see these, you've seen these disasters take place on the earth, and you see these signs, then also you attach them to Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? Even just like before, you remember through His blessing, you remember Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? And over here as well, for you to remember that this is all the mulk of Allah Azza wa Jal. When Allah wishes, then He sends disasters as well. Right? So how are you finding yourself to be so secure? Right? Do you think are you so secure that if Allah Azza wa Jal were to send these disasters upon you, that you'd be saved? فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ. So that you will know how was my forewarning. فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ. You would know then the warning that came to you. You would then understand it, right? You would then understand it. Sometimes certain warnings of Allah Azza wa Jal, right, sometimes only through difficulties are understood. Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, or giving a chance, that understand it before it comes to you, right? As it's narrated, to go back to the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well, as-sa'idu man wa'idha bighayrihi, that a fortunate person is one who takes a lesson from besides them. Meaning, before something happens to you and you become the lesson, take a lesson from other things. Right? So in these ayat, Allah Azza wa Jalla, فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ, that if any of this were to occur to you, then you'd know, then you'd know what a type of warning this is. Right? So take the warning now that Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling you of it before it occurs. وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ. And very truly, those who disbelieved before them also belied. They also belied من قبلهم. The people before also belied this message, this warning. فكيف كان نكير. And then how then was my was the kind of punishment to them, right? The response of Allah Azza wa Jal to them at that time, then how was it, right? So these things that occurred, the Arab at their time knew of these things, and the nations before them, and what occurred to them, these different punishments. There were normal stories that they would tell, and they spoke about, right? And they knew. Although the Quran then comes again and speaks about Ad and Thamud and all of these things, they were well aware as well of these aqwam, of these nations that came before. And so Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, that those that came before, they belied as well. And so then how then, فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرٌ, right? This is like there's a type of a shock in this message, that then, how was it? How was the punishment? أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ. Then have they not looked to the birds above them, outspreading and folding their wings in flight? Now, some of the Mufassirun mentioned yani, uh, that this is directly the type of conversation which is happening here, is that Allah Azza wa Jal is talking about his blessings. He's saying, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. Then right after that, he's speaking directly to the core of disbelief, that, through the warning, why are you disbelieving? Right? So you have the blessings, then Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, speaking after the blessing, right? After Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, mankind has been blessed. I've blessed you with this earth and these things, and you don't recognize me. So then the tone changes to, do you think you're secured from my punishment if I want to punish you? And then back to another part of the creation, the beauty of the creation, the birds. And some of the Mufassirun mention, why is it that after the ayah وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, that those before you belied, that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the birds? And one of the Mufassirun, he mentions that it is because the birds are an important symbol for these people. When they see the birds, what do they remember? They remember Amul Fil, when the Abraha brought the elephants and they had tried to attack Makkah Mukarramah, and Allah Azza wa Jal sent the Ababil. Right? So when they see the birds, it's also, yes, beauty, but then it's part of this reminder that Allah Azza wa Jal, through the birds, destroyed the people, those people who tried to take war against Allah Azza wa Jal's sacred things. So this is perhaps the attachment to it. But regardless, the mode of the conversation is that Allah Azza wa Jalla is reminding of His warnings, and why don't you believe then? And then speaking about His ni'mah, His blessing again, which is أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ. Right? This is also the beauty of His creation, that then have they not looked out to the birds above them, صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ, that they spread their wings and then they fold them for their flight. Right? And according to the how you would understand صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ and the tarkib of this ayah, some of the mufassirun also speak about how the birds flock when they go in a group, and how that shape of that flock is also symmetrical, or they're flying in this perfect way where a bunch of them are together, right? It's something that shows the power of Allah Azza wa Jal. And how does it show the power of Allah Azza wa Jal? So much so that human beings take inspiration or took inspiration from it, and we looked at it and we thought about flight, right? We see the birds, we see these other creations, we thought about flight. Allah Azza wa Jal gave the insan then the ability to create this mode of travel, which is through flight. Right? So this is through inspiration from the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. There isn't anything that the insan creates, the human being creates, except that it is from the inspiration of Allah Azza wa Jal's original creation. Right? And humans don't create out of nothing, only Allah Azza wa Jal creates out of nothing. Allah Azza wa Jal creates out of nothing. That creation serves as an inspiration, right? So then human beings are inspired to create other things, right? So looking at the birds is an inspiration. Allah Azza wa Jal, why don't they look at the birds? Right? ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن. None holds them, right? Nothing is holding these birds in their place except Ar-Rahman, but the All-Merciful, right? Now you can, right? You can understand that there are scientific laws behind how that happened, how is that happening, how does flight take place, etc. Right? But Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, "Ma yumsikuhunna illa Rahman," that none holds them but the All Merciful. So again, the idea is that everything has to be attached to Allah Azza wa Jalla. If you understand His creation with more depth, that doesn't mean you remove Him from His creation. Rather, that means you're supposed to attach this creation to Allah Azza wa Jal in an even better way. It should make your iman stronger. Right? This is why, for example, the ulama of the past, when they studied different aspects of the human body, it increased them in iman. You know, for example, Imam Ghazali rahimahullah has a few books series on the creation of Allah. One book on the animals. He talks about animals. He just talks about the creation. Another book he talks about the human being in the body. Why there are eyebrows, the type of the shape of the body of the human being, the hands, all these things. He talks about it. But when you read his book, then your iman increases. Why? Because he attaches it to Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? This is the mistake that of our time, that when we assume that we gain some knowledge of something, so we disattach it from Allah Azza wa Jal. If we gain more knowledge of the creation, it should only allow us to attach it more to the fact that there must have been someone who musawwir, someone who designed it, perfected it, right? Someone who designed it and perfected it. So then you should see the names of Allah Azza wa Jal. مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. Rahman is Rahman is a name which is very, very broad. So Allah Azza wa Jal in one place in the Quran says, قُلِ ادْعُوا اللَّهَ أَوِ ادْعُوا الرَّحْمَنِ, that call Allah or call Ar-Rahman. Yeah. So Rahman is also a very, very broad name of Allah Azza wa Jal. It doesn't only refer to kind of the specific mercy that we generally assume. إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٍ. Indeed, He is all seeing of all things. So why is Allah Azza wa Jal saying that indeed He is all seeing of all things? Because He wants us to see as well. Right? The beginning of the ayah says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا, don't they see? And now here Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٍ, that Allah Azza wa Jal is all seeing of all things. Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to see, wants us to open our vision, wants us to open our insight. The ulama give the example of like two people who they say in the town there's a carnival or there's whatever it is, let's go see it. So then the two people go and they see this carnival, and when they come back and they exit that place, one asks the other, what did you see? So he says, I saw the lights and I saw the decorations and I saw this and I saw the people and all of that. And then he asked the other, what did you see and what did you enjoy? He said, oh, I was paying attention to the sidewalk the entire time. I didn't see anything else, right? So the point of this example is that people enter this dunya, many people enter this dunya, some people see different things, and some people whom Allah Azza wa Jal opens their vision, they see many other things, right? So Allah Azza wa Jal wants you to open your vision and to see those things. إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٍ. Allah Azza wa Jal sees all things and He wants you to see those things. The quality of the birds to be united and organized is also a good quality for human beings to learn from. That in their organization, they should try to make things look symmetrical, organized, perfect, beautiful, right? They should do things with ihsan, with perfection. Right? So this ayah is another ayah again pointing to this, the mulk of Allah Azza wa Jal, the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, and invoking us to look at it, pay attention to it. What does it make you think of? Right? إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٍ. The another issue with our time is that we're often so engrossed in the creation, and perhaps this is the fitna of our time, that we're so engrossed in the creation of human beings that we're always marveled at the new inventions and the new things that human beings are creating. We're so moved by them. Oh, how did they create trains that go this fast, and how did they do this? How are these new things being created, right? And that's covering us from going back to Allah's creation, looking at the beauty of His creation, right? This is why, uh, you know, Muslims in the past, Muslim architects, they always wanted that whatever homes and different buildings they design, they should complement the nature around them. They shouldn't look odd, that you would only pay attention then to those things. For example, uh, you know, modern architecture is very odd. Buildings and these tall skyscrapers and all these things. You're then only forced to look at those things. It doesn't complement nature. Right? It doesn't complement the colors surrounding, right? The type of the environment, the climate, right? I remember a book that one of my friends shared with me of an Egyptian architect who lived amongst a certain people, and he said, I have to live amongst them, see their lifestyle, see the nature around them, then only I can design the homes that are best for them in functionality and how they would live and use those homes, and also what would complement their surroundings, meaning would complement the nature around them, right? And that's the way things should be. It should not be scattered and disorganized. It should complement and be synchronous with Allah's creation. It should not be strange and odd. So Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to look at these things, look at this organization, right? The organization that Allah Azza wa Jalla has inspired to His animals. Right? Human beings can learn a lot from that organization. Right? وما من دابة في الأرض ولا طائر يطير بجناحيه إلا أمثالكم. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran that there isn't a creature which crawls on the earth or a bird that flies with its wings إلا أمثالكم, except they are nations similar to you. And the point of that being, and this actually ayah is probably the ayah that inspired Imam Ghazali rahimahullah to write his entire booklet on the khalq of Allah, on the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, that there's a lot that the human beings can learn from the animals by looking at, Imam Ghazali rahimahullah talks about the ant. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the ant in the Quran, right? Imam Ghazali talks about the ant and how the ants make their homes, right? How the bees, their what they do, their organization, how is everything so organized, right? The birds over here, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions this ayah, safatin. Specifically, this quality description is given, safatin. Right? And right, in this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal says, safatin wa yaqbidn. Safat is a description, is an ism, it's a noun. Then after that, وَيَقْبِضْنِ يَقْبِضْنِ is a fi'l. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla didn't say, أَوْلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ يَصْفُفْنَ وَيَقْبِضْنَ. Right? He said, صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ. An ism first, a noun first, after that, a verb. Right? So this emphasizes this quality of safat, this kind of how they organize themselves, their wings and their flock, right? That organization that's there. And so this points to the creativity of Allah Azza wa Jal. مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to know that this organization in His creation that we see, right? From the birds to the biggest and greatest things like the orbit of planets, etc. All of this is held together by Ar-Rahman, by Allah Azza wa Jal. There's an ayah which you'll generally see written in many of the domes in Uthmani masajid, in the masajid in Turkey, written the Ottoman architects, when they built those masajid, they would write that ayah in the dome, which is that Allah Azza wa Jal holds the sky, right? The ayah that says that Allah Azza wa Jal holds the sky, right? Allah Azza wa Jal is the one is holding the sky in its place, right? Nothing else is holding, right, this earth and the creation and the way it's supposed to be except Allah Azza wa Jal. This is the understanding that a person of Iman has. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ يَنْصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ إِنَ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. Then back to the discussion on why are you disbelieving, the ayat kind of which are talking in that tone. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, or who is that mighty host of yours who will support you against eternal punishment apart from the all-merciful, min dun rahman. Right? Which army do you have? Who is that army? Who are those people who they will support you and protect you, when when if Allah Azza wa Jal were to send a punishment to you besides Allah, right? In al kafiruna illa fi ghurur, that indeed the disbelievers are in but delusion, ghurur. This is only a delusion to assume that anything could protect you, and this is the basic, we say basic but extremely powerful belief which Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave to us, that Allah Azza wa Jal does and nothing else can do, that Allah Azza wa Jal benefits and Allah Azza wa Jal harms, and nothing else can benefit and nothing else can harm, right? As the Hadith Qudsi, which Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam said, Allah Azza wa Jal said that if all of mankind, of all of the creation, ins and jinn, were to come together and they wanted to harm you, right? If Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't want them to harm you, then they cannot harm you. If they want to benefit you, but Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't want you to take benefit, then you would not be able to take benefit and they cannot benefit you. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Or who is that affluent one that will provide for you? And who will give you rizq? Who can give you sustenance if Allah Azza wa Jal were to withhold that rizq? If Allah Azza wa Jal were to withhold His sustenance, then who will give it to you? بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Despite these signs, when Allah Azza wa Jalla says بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ, that despite these signs, despite these things, the when the insan sees their vulnerability, when the insan sees their weakness, right? And this is why, this is probably perhaps the greatest wisdom behind why Allah sends masa'ib, tests over insan. For them to, the masa'ib are actually a mercy, a rahmah, which is why we're always supposed to be patient and think good of Allah Azza wa Jal, because this is just another form of a wake-up call. The masa'ib are just a wake-up call of our iman, that, when you remember through Allah's blessings, through His blessings you remember Allah. Allah Azza wa Jal also wants us sometimes to, through our difficulties and through our vulnerabilities and weaknesses, to remember Allah. Sometimes you need to be placed in a difficult place to remember Allah. So Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, despite, these things, and people can relate to these things. Right? These are all relatable things. Right? People can remember many times of their life when, something really bad could have happened to them, and somehow they were protected. Everyone has this, moment where, this really bad thing could have happened to me. Somehow I was protected. This ayah, أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ يَنْصُرُكُمْ مِنْ دُونِ is pointing to that reality. Right? It's one spectrum. It's that reality that, you thought no one could protect you. All of a sudden you were protected. Who protected you? Allah Azza wa Jalla protected you. At some moment in your life you were afraid of rizq. Right? Now today we have so much rizq and we're still afraid of rizq. Right? This is like a double reality Allah showing us of our vulnerability, our weakness. Right? That we have so much rizq and we're still afraid of having or not having rizq. Right? This is how vulnerable, how weak we are. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, do you not ever remember a time in your life, right, that this, the rizq that Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving you, that you were trying to have it, you were worried about it, where are you going to get it from? If Allah Azza wa Jalla withheld it longer, who would have given it to you? Right? Who would have given it to you? But despite these signs, right, despite these signs, بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ, they persist. It has to be that, that if a person is still after these moments that Allah Azza wa Jalla shows, right? And this is why these moments are not just external. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, that we show them our signs in the horizons and in themselves. Right? So yes, you have these things happening outside, disasters, etc. But then you have these moments in those disasters. So you have the sign of what you're seeing, and then you have the sign in yourself that when you're seeing what you're seeing and you process it and you understand it, right, and you feel weak and you feel vulnerable, and that if Allah Azza wa Jal were not to protect you, who's going to protect you? At that moment, that understanding that you get, right, that is supposed to bring iman in a person. If it doesn't, then it's only because the person is choosing to be negligent and to persist. Yeah? So Allah Azza wa Jalla says, بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. This is like, lajju is to go deep into something. Right? To go deep into something. That they persist. فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Utu is this, um, diversion from or this dhulm, this wrong that they're in, right? This diversion from the truth, right? So they persist in this, right? And nufur, that they're staying away from the truth, right? That they're staying away. Nufur means to, stay away from something, right? And it has a sense of, disliking in it. But nufur, it would mean they're staying away. They want to stay away from the truth, right? And so then the last ayah, and we'll just briefly read it and come back to it next week. But the last ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, then after all of this, right? After all of these signs that Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about. Now Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the people and their relation to the signs. Right? So you have all the signs, then the difference of two types of people. Allah Azza wa Jal says, then is one who walks mukibban ala wajhihi ahda amma yamshi sawiyan ala siratal mustaqim. Then is the one who walks, he's translated as pitched on his face. But mukibban means, when a person puts their head down, right? So if a person were to walk with their head completely down, they cannot guide themselves, right? Versus a person who is, who's more guided, who would be more guided, right? Very simple analogy Allah Azza wa Jalla. A person who's putting his head completely towards the ground, would this person be more guided than a person who's walking, straight? He sees where he's walking and he's on a straight path. Sawiyan ala sirat mustaqim. Right? It's not just being placed on the sirat mustaqim. This is what we want. We want that Allah Azza wa Jal places us on the sirat mustaqim. It's not just being placed on the straight path. Allah may place you on the straight path. On the straight path, are you going to walk with your head down, or are you going to walk with your head up and looking at the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal? Right? And this kind of goes back to the example I gave between the two people in the carnival, right? Some people see signs, some people don't see, right? So Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying all of this to look at His mulk, to open your vision and to see, right? Because all of this will open not just your eyes, but the eyes of your iman, your faith, your insight, right? The basira, which is the ability for your heart, your iman to see, that is what Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to gain from these ayat. And we'll conclude here. May Allah Azza wa Jalla grant us understanding of these ayat and the ability to apply them in our lives. May He forgive us for any shortcomings in our understanding of His perfect word. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين صدق الله العظيم سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك اللهم